Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Using Writing to Build Your Brand webinar brought to you by your Vanderbilt Alumni Association. I'm Sarah Whitney Anderson, Assistant Director of Alumni and Student Engagement, and I'm so glad you could join us from wherever you are this afternoon. Today's webinar will be wrapped up within the hour, lasting around 45 minutes with time at the end for questions. Please type your questions as you have them into the questions box, and we will make sure that they are addressed before time is up. We are recording today's presentation and will share a link with you via email later on. Many of you may know our presenter as the director of the Vanderbilt Career Center. Dr. Kate Brooks became the Evans family executive director of the Career Center at Vanderbilt University in June 2016. Prior to that, she directed career centers at Wake Forest University, the University of Texas in Austin, and Dickinson College. Dr. Brooks is the author of You Majored in What? Designing Your Path from College to Career, and writes a blog, Career Transitions for Psychology Today. She has twice been designated a top 10 most visionary leader in career services by CSO Research and received the prestigious Kauffman Award from the National Association of Colleges and Employers, also known as NACE. Brooks has a doctorate in educational psychology and a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling from West Virginia University. Her bachelor's degree is in sociology from Gettysburg College. Kate, we thank you so much for being with us today.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm really pleased to be here, and it's an interesting topic. It's kind of a broad topic, so my one fear is that I'm going to miss what some of you wanted to hear. So I'm hoping that at the end of this, you will give us feedback, either ask questions if you have them, or certainly let the alumni office know that you want a seminar or a webinar that drills down maybe even more in detail on a particular area. But I thought what we would do is we're gonna take about the first 15 minutes to talk about branding. Then we're going to take about 15 minutes to talk about the writing process. And then the last 15 minutes will be what's next and a few exercises for you to try. Now, don't worry about copying down the info that's on the slides, because you will be able to get a PDF of this right away, and they are going to have a recording of this. So no worries if you heard something and you missed it and you want to know what was said. It will come back around to you in some way, shape, or form. I'm also going to use myself as an example throughout this a little bit, because I'm currently developing a brand new blog, and so I'm in this whole process of writing as well as developing a new brand. And some of this may be do as I say, not as I do, because I'm not always the best at this, but I think I can give you a lot of the basic information that you need to know to start building a brand if you have not already done so. I also, unfortunately, don't really know who you are. So as a result, you might be a person in a private practice. Maybe you're a psychologist or a dentist or an accountant, or you have some sort of private practice and you're trying to build your business. You might be a writer who simply wants to have more writing assignments, is trying to find freelance opportunities. You might work for an organization and you want to build up your brand within your organization or within your field. You might be a scientist or a researcher who wants to get known in his or her field. So there are a lot of ways to apply what I'm going to talk about today, and I hope that this will be helpful to you, and you will be able to apply what I'm talking about to whatever your situation is. So let's see if we can make the slide move. Hang on 1 minute. We're just having a little technical difficulty, as they say. There we go. All right. So the first thing we want to talk about is branding. And I put this up here first because I think it's important to remember that there's a circular relationship between branding and writing. It goes back and forth. Your brand is, quite frankly, based on what you're going to write, but you also skew your writing to fit your brand. So it sort of goes both ways. And as you think about your brand, the first thing to consider is, what's my goal? Why am I even thinking about a brand? What's the point? Is it that I want to educate people? Do I have some knowledge or some field of study that people need to know more about? Is it that I want to communicate my background, what I do? Do I want to help other people? Am I trying to get known in my field? Do I want to improve my chances for finding a job across the country, and maybe no one knows me in California? I'm currently in New York and now I want to move. So one way to improve my opportunities for getting employment elsewhere might be to have a brand that's more national. Or is it that I have an opinion and I want to express this opinion and I want to be known for this particular opinion? That's another reason to create a brand and to do some writing. So we're going to be looking at this as a concept. As you,
I'm worried that, sorry everyone if you can hear us. It says computer audio, and I just want to make sure that y'all can hear us. Okay, it's on. I apologize for that.
Okay, once again, some technical difficulties. We'll keep going. So as we start talking about your brand, we want to think about it as a combination of several things. And the first thing to think about is, what is your knowledge area, your skills, your talents? Because that really precedes your brand. You need something behind the just branding. Otherwise, you're just a celebrity to be a celebrity. There's no there. So start with, what do I know? What am I good at? What is the body of knowledge that I have that I want to share with the world? And so that's your starting point. You also then need to think about, what is my personality, and what parts of my personality do I want to project? What do I want people to know about me? What are the parts of me that I want in the public eye? And so when you think about that, you have a lot of different parts. You've got, you might be one type of person when you're in your business suit during the day, or your professional dress. But when you're home in the evening in your PJs, you're kind of another sort of person. And then maybe you have a certain niche or outfit. I used to live in Texas, and a lot of folks lived in their boots and jeans, and that was sort of a different persona. So one of the things to think about with your brand is, what is the persona that I want to project? What is the impression I want people to have about me, and does that fit my topic? Now, you can play with that. You can be the cowboy psychologist if you want to be. You don't have to be the psychologist researcher, so to speak. You can have a unique voice and brand that applies to whatever field you want, as long as you don't go too far afield. Another thing to think about is to create a brand for yourself that isn't too narrow. You want to have a niche to a certain extent, but not be so narrow that it's hard to break out of it. I think of a colleague of mine who has branded herself starting when she was about age 25 or so. She branded herself as the intern queen. And in the field of career services, everyone knows her as the intern queen. If you Google intern queen, you'll find her. She's written books. She talks about internships and so on. And that's great, unless she wants to move beyond that. If she gets to a point in her career where she says, interns are pretty much a 20-year-old market, or a market for 18 to 22, I don't really resonate to that market anymore. Now she's either going to have to create a whole new brand for herself, or she may create two brands, keep the intern queen, start a new one. But it's worth thinking about, is there sort of a broader spectrum for you to consider as you think about, your brand and where you want to be. And then, what do you choose to project? That becomes really important. Also, as you think about building your brand, you want to be thinking about, how far do I want to go with this brand? Am I trying to brand myself within my own organization, or maybe just within my own team? I want to be known as, in my office setting, I want to be known as the mentor. I want to be known as the person who helps new people coming in. So there might be some writing that I could do. Maybe I decide, because of that, and that's my brand, I'm going to write a guide for new employees in my setting, so that somebody who's coming in to my office for the first time would know sort of the ropes. Or maybe it's my division within my company. Maybe it's my whole company. I want to be known within my company as the person to go to for this. Or maybe we're going to take it further to your region or your field, or to a national audience. How far out do I want my brand to extend? And then finally, maybe even international. Again, do I want to keep going? And this is important to think about. For instance, let's say you're in a private practice and you're a psychologist, and maybe you only see people in your town. So your brand really doesn't need to go beyond your town unless you want it to. On the other hand, depending on your licensing regulations of your state, you might be able to have clients from across the country. And you might find that a great way to build your business is to not see people in your town so much as to see people who are farther away, maybe because of the confidentiality factor, and they'll feel more comfortable if they're working with a therapist that is not in their home community. So in that case, you want to look maybe at a national brand. So one example I think of is there's a gentleman named Robert Duff, Duff, and you can look him up. He's an interesting guy. I believe he's in California, but he sets up all kinds of workshops. He's written several books. He has workshops that go across the country. He takes clients from across the country, and he has a series of books called Hardcore Self-Help. And the reason I mention him is he has a very unique brand. His brand basically uses a lot of language that some people may or may not like. If you like four-letter words, you may like his brand. But what he does is he gets attention. And he doesn't come across as a stuffy psychologist, with his degrees. He has the clinical degree. He's got a PhD. He knows his stuff. But he reaches an audience that is less comfortable with traditional psychology. So he's created his brand. It's going to appeal to some people. It's going to turn off other people. But the point is he's created it, and he knows his niche, and he keeps building it. And that kind of leads us to this idea of your brand and your platform. Those are two words that get confused. Brand is sort of who you are. What is that image that you're projecting out? Platform is who follows you, who knows about you. So if you have a Twitter feed, if you have a LinkedIn account, if you are using any kind of social media, how many followers do you have? If you're writing a blog, your platform is the people who know you and might ultimately purchase your services or purchase your writing or whatever it is your goal is. Remember at the very beginning, we talked about what's your goal. So why do you want a brand? Is it to sell something, or is it simply to create an audience for your opinions or your ideas? And so again, thinking about that can be very helpful. The trick here is to match your platform and your brand as closely as possible. I can give you an example. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Kardashians and some of the Kardashian spinoffs, so to speak, like Kylie and Kendall Jenner. And if you think about their brand tends to be fun. It tends to be fashion, reality TV, lipstick, makeup, that's sort of what you think of when you think of the Kardashians and you think of them. So Kylie and Kendall wrote a book. They decided to write a book that was it was called Rebel City of Indira. And basically it was a dystopian fiction piece. Now, these are people who have a platform of like 110 million people. So you would think they could sell books to their platform. Not really. This particular book, I think, sold about 17,000 copies. Now, if you're a brand new author and you're hoping to break into the writing world, 17,000 copies is wonderful. But when you are the Jenner family and you have all that attention out there and only 17,000 copies of your book sell, that is not considered a success in their world. Now, they may have written that for another reason. They may have just wanted to write a book and they really didn't care what the sales were. But that's an example of when you go off your brand and it's not a lipstick, but it's a dystopian novel. They've gone off brand. They haven't really appealed to their platform. So that's something to just sort of keep in mind. Who is in my platform? What does my platform want to hear? And how can I make sure that I'm giving them what they want to know? So when you think about, writing, and we're going to talk about writing, I promise, in a few minutes here, but as you think about it, you need to be thinking about these different areas. So one thing is the topic, and we're going to talk more about the topic, but how sustainable is my topic? If I'm going to write about a particular thing, let's say I've decided to start a blog. I've decided that blogging is what I want to do. Do I have a topic that I can keep blogging about? Or is it going to be that I'm going to do 5 blog posts and then it's like, well, pretty much said what I wanted to say. So that's, again, where deciding on your basic brand needs to be broad. When I created my blog for Psychology Today, I purposely chose the topic career transitions. If I had just said careers, that's too broad. That could be anything. But by putting in the word transitions, it pulls it in a little bit, but almost anything fits under career transitions. I can talk about college to career. I can talk about you need to have a resume if you're going to transition into a new career. I can talk about retirement. There are a lot of ways I can go. So it gives me flexibility, but at the same time, it's encased in a particular topic area so my readers, my platform knows where to go. And I can tell you that it's very hard to predict who's going to resonate to what. I have written blog posts that I thought were just brilliant. I have to say so myself, just wonderful. And I get like 50 readers. And then I've written something that I wrote in 10 minutes and it was just quick because I had a deadline and I needed to get something out, and I'll get 200,000. And I don't know why. And so there is a little bit of catch as catch can about this whole process. Serendipity, I guess, would be the better way to say that. You also want to think about delivery. In your field, is it better to write a magazine article or a journal article? You know, journals tend to be more learned. They tend to be read by researchers. They tend to be read by a particular audience. So be thinking about who's my audience. Now, you might be in a scientific field or a very technical field, and you might right off the bat say, well, I should write in a journal. And that may be true. And that is how you advance your career quite often, by writing, researching, and writing in journals. But you could also think about, what do people who aren't in my field need to know about my field? And would that be better served in a magazine article? Should I try to write something that maybe isn't geared to my typical audience, but gets me to a broader audience, a more general audience that needs to know about this? So if you're an astrophysicist, you might be thinking about, you know, here are the top 10 things people should know about astrophysics that they don't know, because most of us don't know astrophysics. So if you have that idea, where might you go with it? And so that's where a blog, being a guest writer on someone else's blog, those are all sorts of ways to be thinking about this. In terms of your audience, again, as I mentioned, you need to know who is the audience for what I'm going to write, who will be interested in, how do I reach them. So you want to think about what are the ways to get to them, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. Also, my purpose. Why am I doing this? This goes back to my original question. What was your purpose in even attending this? What was your purpose in saying I want to develop a brand? Why am I doing this, and why is my audience reading this? It's really important to keep that in mind. And uniqueness. How are you different? How do you stand out in a way that's new? If all you're doing is adding to the clutter, if there's already a million blogs out there on, I don't know, marketing, how is your blog about marketing going to add new value to your reader? How are you going to niche it in such a way that it will be very interesting? So you want to be thinking about, how do I make it unique? When I talk about this, one of the things that comes up from a lot of folks is, okay, do I go with passion or do I go with what's practical? And I'm going to tell you it's both, because you need a more sophisticated strategy than just follow your passion. That may work for you, but I think it's better to not, maybe pull it back, not so much passion as interest. What am I really interested in? Because whatever you decide to make your brand and your niche, you're going to be writing about that. You are going to be talking about it. You're going to be doing a lot of things connected to it, so you don't want to be bored. And if you're a person who likes bright, shiny new objects every couple of weeks, then you're going to need to think about a broader brand that allows you to stretch and write about different things under that same topic. On the other hand, if you're very laser sharp focused on a particular topic, then you may find that it's better to just focus in on that one thing and very practically try to expand it in ways that will interest people. And so one way to think about this is, what kind of writing leads to money? What really happens usually is writing very seldom just leads directly to money. What writing can do is it leads to attention, and then the attention leads to money. So your writing can cause potential employers across the country to recognize you and say, hey, she's been writing a lot about this particular topic. We'd like to have her work for us. So whatever field you're in, knowing what the hot topics are, and knowing how to have a new or different voice in that area can get you job opportunities throughout the country. It also, and presumably you will make more money because you'll be moving to a different job. Another way is it can get you the attention of a publisher or someone who might pay you to write more. So that's another way that writing brings attention, which then brings money. So it's sort of a process. So what I want to do now is move into the writing part of things. And so with writing, the main thing to keep in mind is content. That's what is needed, is what is my content? What am I writing about? And how is it different? How is it unique? How does it not just add to the noise that's already out there? Because noise will not get noticed. So here are just tons of ways that you can think about your writing. And as you look at this, I encourage you to think about how to repurpose. This is one of those do as I say, not as I do. I am notoriously bad at just writing something and then that's it. It just ends up in my desk or it gets published and then that's the end of it. What you really should be thinking about doing is, okay, now I've written on this topic. Now, how do I turn that into a webinar? How do I go to udemy.com and turn it into an online class? How do I develop a training program where I train other people? So you take your idea, whatever your content is, and you start to spread it out. So if you look at some of these writing opportunities that I have up here, in the top left, you can see emails. I know that sounds really basic, but emails are a great way to get noticed even inside your workplace. If you're the one who consistently sends out well-written, concise emails that get to the point and get noticed because you spell everything correctly and your sentences make sense and you actually communicate your thoughts well, you are going to stand out above many other people in your organization and beyond. So just writing strong emails is a great start to your brand. You get known just by that as an intelligent person who sends out good emails. There's a gentleman, it's kind of a well-known story in Disney, where one of the writers on Disney's team for the movies wrote an email about how he came up with his plots for movies, and he wrote about what's called the hero's journey, a famous mythological approach. And that one email started getting sent around throughout Disney Corps and throughout all the other companies that do movies and children's movies and even movies for adults. And it ended up turning into a book and into a career for this person. It started with an email. We have an email that I get here at Vanderbilt. There's a wonderful gentleman here, Randy Tarkington, who works in our housing area. And Randy writes this email every week. He's kind of a foodie and he's very much in love with Nashville. And he sends out an email every single week about what to do in Nashville this weekend. He's got all the concerts. He knows what restaurants are opening. He gives you his reviews of restaurants. You just really get to know Randy via this email. That email has become so popular. It's one of those things that whenever we have a new employee come on board, the first thing I say is write to Randy, send him an email, ask him to be on your listserv, or on his listserv, and get his emails, and you will know everything that's going on in Nashville that weekend. So without even knowing Randy, and I've now, of course, met Randy, and he's a wonderful person, I already knew he was a wonderful person. I already knew a lot about him, and he was important here at Vanderbilt, if only because of that email that he sends out. So that's a way to establish your brand at a very micro level, just by writing a good email. So other things to take a look at would be, quarterly or annual reports if you work for a company, or strategic plans. Nobody likes writing those. So if you have a knack for that, and that's something you enjoy or you're willing to take it on, again, that's a way to build your brand as somebody who will tackle difficult things. Workbooks and training manuals. How many times do you explain the same thing over and over and over to new staff or to people who forget how to use something? Maybe it's time to start drafting some workbooks and training manuals and put your name on it so that it's by you, and pass it around. You never know where these sorts of things will end up, and it will start to build your brand. And then, of course, I've got lots of things that I'm sure you've already been thinking about: journal or magazine articles, or writing a website, maybe some of you are thinking of nonfiction books as a way to build your brand. That's a great way to build your brand, because even if it doesn't sell a lot, you can print them, particularly if you do them as ebooks, you can print them and you can go and give talks and just hand those books out, even for free. There are lots of ways also to, of course, sell them through Amazon or other e-publishing sites. Things like social media, getting onto Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and all the key social media sites. Those are opportunities to get known and to get your brand known. And that's, again, why it's so important to go back to the brand. What's the image? Do I have a photo that fits my image? Do I have a tagline that fits my image? And so that people kind of know who I am and they know what to expect. And then I know these ones towards the end you might not think of as writing per se, but in order to teach a class, you've got to have a syllabus, more or less, and you have to have a plan for what you're going to teach. And I personally find that teaching a class is a great way to force myself to write something. If there's a topic I want to learn, the best way to learn it is to teach it to somebody else. So if you can start building up an online class or a webinar, just like I'm doing right now, if there's a way that you can construct a topic, this is a great way to expand your writing into other areas. And certainly coaching individuals and consulting is another way to go with your writing. Again, we just keep expanding and start with what's a small thing, like an email about the hero's journey and using that as a narrative model in films. And now that gentleman has written a book and he does coaching sessions all across the country and he consults with various film producers and so on, from what started as an email. So be thinking about, how can I repurpose and share my knowledge? What knowledge do I have to share? And it's okay to start small with things like emails. So 3 basic elements to writing success. I would say, even before you get to the things I have on here, you have to want to learn. You need to be a learner, I think, to be a good writer, because you need to be curious. You need to be thinking about, how does this work? Oh, I didn't know about that. I want to learn more. And then I think you have to add on to that a desire to educate or inform others, because that's what writers do. It's like we take our knowledge and then we build it up, and then we've got to tell somebody else about it. And so that's what you are doing. And so this is a pretty simple 3 elements. You've got to write well. If that's not in your wheelhouse yet, if you're just learning to write, or maybe you haven't written in a while and you're a little rusty, then build that up. That may be your first goal. We're going to talk about goals at the end of this. One of your goals might be, I'm going to take a writing seminar because it's been a while since I've really had to write. Or I've been writing, but I've never written in this particular genre. So now I'm going to write about that. Like I said, content is king. You need something to write about. So again, thinking, what are these topics that have some depth to them? So if I'm the world's expert on hamsters, I may want to start a blog about hamsters, and every week I'm going to write something else about hamsters, and I know nothing about hamsters, but here we go. I'm going to write about how to feed them, and I'm going to write about how long they live and how to take care of them, what are hamster illnesses, and so on. But after I've kind of gotten, a certain distance in that, well, maybe now I need to go sideways a little bit. All right, maybe the same kind of people who like hamsters like gerbils, and I'm going to write about gerbils, and then maybe I'm going to expand out to rabbits, But the idea is you've got to have a topic, and you need to be able to expand on that topic. And then the third thing is you really need to know how to market. And so much of marketing is getting the word out. And some of that's, as I said, a certain, it's a little bit of a gamble. It's hard to predict. There's serendipity in it, but getting yourself out there on Twitter, on Facebook, creating a Facebook page for your products or your service, creating a Twitter feed that, again, matches your brand, has your picture, deals with the topics that you're dealing with. That will be the start of your marketing. This is way too quick a session to talk in depth about marketing, but there are dummies guides, for instance, that are really good. The dummies guide to Twitter, the dummies guide to social media. Those are great guides to pick up to get all the basics you need to know about setting up those kinds of accounts or repurposing your account. If you already have one, but maybe you haven't really targeted it and it's time to switch it around a little bit. So in terms of the writing process, The first stage, of course, is accumulating your knowledge, figuring out what do I know about this topic, what don't I know, what do I need to learn more of. And so accumulating your knowledge, and this is a rabbit hole that's easy to go down. I don't know about you, but I love to research. That's my favorite thing. But we all know the challenges of Google, because you get into Google and you start in on, I'll start in on careers and this one topic that I want to research, and the next thing I know, I'm reading about Matthew Perry's recent surgery or whatever, because that's what Google does to you. So set time limits. Say I'm going in for, set a timer. I'm gonna research for 15 minutes, and when you know you're on the clock, you are less likely to go down those rabbit holes that will slow you down. Then once you've got a basis of research and knowledge, in which you may, of course, already have, organize it. Start to sort it out. Write out, what niche does this fit under? Is this how-to kind of information? Is this background information? As I said, if our topic is hamsters, maybe it's the care of hamsters, and that might involve feeding hamsters. It might involve their whatever aquarium you have them in, or little glass or container that you put them in. Clearly, I know nothing about hamsters, but how do you want to organize your content? What is it that you're going to write about? And teaching your subject to the reader. And again, that's where you need to know your audience, because if I am writing about hamsters, I need to know if I'm writing this to veterinarians or am I writing it to third graders. I'm going to change my style of writing accordingly. So who is my reader? Who's my platform? And you teach it to that platform. You always, of course, need to edit and polish your work. So if editing is not a skill, then again, do I want to take an online class on editing, or am I going to pay somebody else to edit it? And that's another thing to think about, because you want to make it as polished as possible before you go online. Because again, this has to do with your reputation. If you have misspelled words, I know when I find a website of a so-called expert and there's misspelled words, I leave that site immediately. They can't be that much of an expert, or they know how to spell. Make it interesting. People are just looking at your site for about 5 seconds before they make a decision to stay on it or to go. So things that will catch their eyes, things that will be interesting, title it in interesting ways. Create creative ways to title your blog posts. I'm going to put a caveat in there, because one of the challenges of blog posts is you want people to search for them. And if your title is too off topic, they won't necessarily go to it. So you need to make sure that there are some key words in that, like in my case, it would be career. I want to make sure that word's in there so that if somebody's Googling careers in or something, my post is going to pop. And then again, as I said before, so important to think of how to repurpose this. How do I make more use of this? Real quick on this. When you start to write for the public, particularly if you put out blog posts or things like that, I have found in the last 5 years or so that I've had a blog, the audience is getting less and less friendly. There's more pot shots, there's more inappropriate digs, there's just some rudeness out there. And there seems to be a desire to get off topic. Like somebody will write a comment about your topic, but then they'll go into politics somehow, or think that you're being political. And the next thing you know, there's this long stream about politics. So I think you have to develop a thick skin. You have to realize that that's just one person's opinion, and it could be one person who didn't even read what you wrote. They just were it was 2 a.m. and they felt like commenting. So I think you want to ignore some of that to a certain extent. But also you can cut off comments. One of the things I'm reading in a lot of social media, they say, well, it's all about the conversation. I don't know if that's as true anymore. That's an older theory on social media, that it's all about the conversation. I don't know. Sometimes that conversation isn't the best. So I would encourage you to just go as far as you can with that. If you want to have comments on your blog or you want to get feedback, that's fine. But also, develop a thick skin. Just let it go. Don't go down in the weeds with them. Don't try to get into arguments. Quite often, if you have a good enough fan base, they will let you, they will argue for you. So what's next? We're almost done here. Thank you for hanging in. So your new best friend, if it wasn't already, is Google. Let me tell you about Google. I know we all know how to do a basic Google search. And so as a writer, when you're trying to think of what topics are hot, what should I focus on? What should I make my blog about or make my articles about, or what's the area? You start with your knowledge base. So for instance, I picked a knowledge base of which I have none, and that is making money in real estate. I decided, okay, I know absolutely nothing about making money in real estate. But when I Googled making money in real estate, 1 billion hits in that topic. So clearly it's a hot topic. There's an argument that it's an overwritten topic. So I know that if I'm going to market my new blog on making money in real estate, I better have a niche because it's just too broad. And then what Google does very nicely is Google will tell you when you just type in make money in real estate, all of a sudden Google starts adding these little words onto it, like with no money, without a license, make it fast, without owning property, Canada for some reason, part-time, online. So those are sort of subheadings. So now just by a basic Google search, I am realizing that if I want to start niching this, maybe one niche that I want to think about is part-time. And because maybe I have a part-time job, and so now I'm looking for part-time work in real estate. So I have an interest in it. It's a passion maybe. I'm going to start writing about it. So just watching what Google prompts you or says you should be searching for based on what everybody else on the planet is searching for, you're going to immediately get some ideas of, oh, there's a niche. Then the next thing is you can look at Google Trends, because Google Trends will tell you the popularity of search queries. You can go into Google Trends and put in a word, and it will tell you over time how popular that word is. So you'll be able to see, again, back to my hamster example, you will be able to see how long have people been searching the word hamster and how popular is it? Is there a lot in the market or not? There's also Google AdWords. If you decide you want to create advertisements for your business, and they will tell you who is searching for these things. So again, back to hamsters. If you are starting a business selling hamsters and you want to start marketing your particular website, you can go into Google AdWords and they will tell you where to place ads. Anybody who's ever has a Facebook account, have you ever noticed you search Amazon, you look up a book or you look up something, or maybe you sign on for a webinar or something, next thing you know, you're on Facebook, and Facebook for some reason is posting ads related to that Amazon search that you just did. That's how Google AdWords works. That's how they find the right niche for your particular audience. There's also Google Alerts. Google Alerts are great. Put in your topic, not too generic a topic or you'll have way too many emails, but it will tell you when that topic pops in the news. So your name, always have a Google Alert for your name. The minute you're on social media, have Google Alerts so that the minute, like my name, Catherine Brooks, I know instantly if somebody has written a blog about me. I have my book title, You Majored in What? If somebody writes a blog and uses the phrase you majored in what, I know it immediately. So it allows me to know if there's a problem out there, but it also allows me to know good things, and I can thank the person who promoted my book. Google Alerts is great. Always have your name on alert, but then also if you write a book or you have something like that, your book title, if you have a business or a website title, have alerts set up for all of that. And if you just have a field that you're trying to learn, Ngrams are another kind of fun thing to do, and I promise I'm going to finish up here pretty quickly. Google Ngrams, this is just one example. Google Ngrams are great for authors and great for books. It will tell you when certain terms started appearing in books, and you can even do a search in a foreign language. You can do searches in Middle English. You can do searches in all sorts of interesting things, but as you can see, this is the sample Ngram viewer that Google did for me. And you can see Frankenstein is incredibly popular. Now, not super, super popular, because if you look on the left, it's 0.000. So, I mean, these are not huge searches. But Frankenstein is more popular than Albert Einstein and Sherlock Holmes, which kind of surprised me. I thought Sherlock Holmes might trump Frankenstein these days, but no. But it will show you the different years and how the popularity of those particular names sort of ebbed and flowed in books. So you'll have a great idea if you're thinking of book titles or you're thinking of topics. You're going to be able to see what time period were these topics hot, and just get a general feel for how's the traffic going on these? So Google Ngrams are kind of fun to do and very interesting. Let me quickly just give you a couple resources. I didn't want to overwhelm you. There's a million resources for writers and for people who want to do this. I already mentioned the Dummies Guide. Purdue OWL. OWL stands for Online Writing Lab. And don't worry about that long address there. Just type in Purdue OWL and you'll get there. Wonderful website for everything you need to know about writing. All kinds of writing, everything from editing, grammar, anything you need to know. It's just wonderful. Writer's Market is a great book. It will tell you what the market is for magazines, for, if you've got a great article that you think would be perfect in Sports Illustrated, it will send you there. It will tell you who the acquisitions editor is for Sports Illustrated. How many freelancers will Sports Illustrated take? And it may be none, but you'll find that out by going to the Writer's Market. Writer's Digest is a great site. It's a great magazine, but not just a magazine. They publish a lot of books. They have a great blog. You can go on there, and they have online webinars and workshops that really drill down in the way that this is kind of a general one today that I hope is just giving you ideas. If you, as a function of this, now say, I really want to write nonfiction, and I want to write nonfiction that's related to this particular topic, go to Writer's Digest and see what they've got. Or if you say, I really do need to up my social media game, Writer's Digest has webinars on that. And it's not the only game. Of course, there's tons of sites that will do this. Writer's Digest, I just think, has a certain level of quality that I feel comfortable recommending them. So 3 exercises for you to work on. And the first one, if you've got a piece of paper there and a pen or whatever, the first one is a real simple fill in the blank of I want to write, and then fill it in because. So I'm just going to be quiet for a few seconds, and I would really like you to just try that one out. So it might be, I want to write a blog because I want to share my point of view about whatever the topic is. It's so important to kind of have an idea of what do I want to write first and why am I doing it? Because that's going to give you your passion. That's going to give you your mission and your meaning. The second exercise, we probably won't have time for me to hold on here, but create a mind map so that you can map out the topic that you want to write about. So if your topic, one of the things I'm getting ready to do is write a new blog about graphic organizers and using graphic organizers to help make decisions. So if I were going to do a mind map, in the middle I would put graphic organizers, and then I would take little spokes from that circle in the middle and I would start putting other circles around that might say SWOT analyses or mind maps or pyramids or different kind of graphic organizers. And then I might put spokes going out from that saying, well, SWOT analysis, that's really good for figuring out how to write a cover letter or what my strengths are for a career field or whatever. So you just keep expanding, kind of like a spider. You take this mind map and you take your topics and you just keep expanding them. So that's a great way to just sit down and figure them out. And then the third thing I encourage you to do is, based on what you've learned today, is set a goal and share it with somebody. By sharing it with someone else, you increase the odds that you're going to achieve that goal, or at least you'll feel very guilty if you don't, one or the other. But so it's a matter of thinking about what's the first thing I want to do next. Now that I've been given all this information, I think the thing I need to focus on is social media. Or the thing I need to do is, I love to write, but it's been a while since I've taken a writing class or something. I think I want to go online and take a writing class and just sort of get, my skills might be a little rusty. I want to get better. So think about that as maybe your next step. So once you've done those 3 exercises, you should be ready to start moving forward. This really, as I said, was an introduction. And certainly if you want me to drill down in more detail about a specific area, please let the alumni office know, and I'm happy to come back and run another one that's more specific to what you need and isn't quite as general. But we are now at 12:45, am I right, our time? And so this is like the time now where if you need to go, we understand. Please do whatever you need to do, but we are open for questions. If people have questions, please feel free. I'm going to turn this over to our fine moderator.
All right, everyone. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send those in the question box, and we will try to get those answered.
Are we on mute?
No. All right, so the first question is interested in building my brand. So Kate, go ahead and answer that one.
Okay. So if the person who asked this question says they really want to build their brand in kind of a one-shot writing, like personal statements. So, and they said, how do I use these pieces of writing to convince admissions and hiring committees? So I assume that you want to become an expert and known for these personal statements. So the first thing you want to do is I would be doing some information interviewing. If you didn't already have knowledge in this area, I would do information interviewing with admissions folks, with people who do this kind of work, who are on these committees, and find out what they are most looking for. Find out what the key elements, like what causes them to like an essay versus not. And I can give you an example because we recently hired a person. We do scholarships and fellowships, the Rhodes and the Marshall and the Mitchell, and we recently hired a person to help us with that in the Career Center. And she comes from having been behind the scenes at a particular award, and so she saw all these applications. And one of the things she said to us, which was a brilliant piece of advice, is she said, so many students write and they tell us that they're the vice president of their organization or their president. And she said, that's just a title. I don't care about your title. I want to know about your impact. I want to know what you did. So if I were in the business of advising people on personal statements, one of the first things I would talk about is what is your impact? And again, get away from those titles. So you think about your niche there. Who cares about that business? Who is going to want to hire you? It's going to be potentially high school students trying to get into college. It's going to be college students trying to get into grad school. It's going to be people going for Rhodes and Marshalls and things like that. So where is my audience for that? And what do they need to know? So it's not just what you know, but how can I educate them? And then how do I start to build my business? And I understand there has been some audio difficulties, and I do apologize for that. We're not sure why. We were not aware of that on this end, so it may be we'll need to fix that. Hopefully this wasn't true for everybody. So another question to think about is somebody had asked me, can I turn a blog into a book? And that's a really interesting concept. People worry about if I put everything out in a blog and I would really like to write a book, will that work against me? That can actually work for you. The blog, if you don't put everything on the blog, if you can say to a publisher, hey, what I've put on the blog is only about 1/10 of what I know, there's lots more in a book, you may actually attract the attention of a publisher. There are numerous examples of successful people who have started with a blog and had it turn into a book. So that's very much an interesting possibility. And let me see, I don't think we have other questions. I think we're good. So I'm kind of hoping that this has answered a lot of things for you. I think one final thing I'd like to just mention is I often hear from people, I'm stuck, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. I think when you get that way, when you kind of freeze and you have writer's block and all that, I think one of the things you can do at that point is, what do I need to know? If you've got a block, you're missing something. You're missing a piece of information. What's the piece of information that's keeping you from moving forward? And that's where you want to focus on. Okay, am I not moving forward because I really just don't know what to do with social media? Okay, now you've got a clue. Go research social media a little bit more and see what you learn, and then move from there. So I hope this has been helpful to everybody. I hope that that it's something that that's given you some starting points. And like I said, please feel free to give feedback and let us know if there's a more specific topic you would like me to address, and I'm happy to do that. Thank you so much for giving up your time today. Thank you for listening.
All right, Kate, thank you for this wonderful presentation, and thank you all for participating. I just want to encourage you again to check out all the career resources and events, both electronic and in person, provided to you by the Vanderbilt Alumni Association. Please sign up for the Commodore Career Intensive with career coach Hallie Crawford. If you'd like more extensive coaching, it begins tomorrow, so sign up as soon as you can. We are always looking to improve upon our offerings to alumni, so please let us know how we can best support you. Thanks again for joining us, and have a wonderful day.